Welcome, Charleston. This is Mr. West Ashley right here. We're interviewing the world famous Professor Griff of the world famous Public Enemy. We want to get this started for 2012, basically get everybody on the right track, leading to the rest of this year, basically. We're trying to put you on point for 2012 right now. So let's get it started. Griff, how you doing, man?
Maintaining, trying to be
That's
like
what's
you.
up. Nah, I'm trying to be like you.
You and the crew here.
I'm trying to be like you, baby. I'm trying to be like you. So, basically, I started off letting you know I grew up listening to nothing but East Coast hip hop, nothing but real hip hop, so they say. I'm from down south, but I grew up listening to Public Enemy, Wu Tang, just hip hop music, So, but we're past that. If you look at it right now, you're online everywhere. You can type in Professor Griffin, 100 clips come up. We've seen everything from Illuminati, we've seen everything from the rap game, we've seen everything from, pretty much music industry, movie industry. Right now we want to take it a little past that and get into some stuff that's actually affecting us today. What this crew is affecting us with today. So where would you start? Would it be a good reading for 2012?
A good reading?
Reading.
I don't know, a lot of times in speaking about, the psychological covert war on hip hop and speaking it to young people, I'm often asked a question about, give me a reading list.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't talk about today. You're not going to understand today unless you have a firm foundation. You have to go back and put in place at least I'd say about 6 or 7 books that'll give you a firm foundation to even understand today. There's a concept coming out of the west coast of Africa. It's called Sankofa.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've seen the Sankofa bird is standing in the present as it's moving forward, but it's always having to fetch it, to go back and fetch it. It's always looking back, but it's moving forward. Right. And that concept is very critical simply because if we're standing in the present, in order to move forward, you got to go back.
Mm-hmm.
I can name some books that I'm reading today that
spit out some.
No, that it'll be fruitless though for the people that's listening and watching. It's simply because if you haven't read Dr. Ben's work,
right,
and right now some people listening to this are scratching their head, who the hell is Dr. Ben?
Who is Dr. Ben, right?
Precisely my point.
Right.
Are you following me?
Right.
So if you haven't studied Dr. John Henry Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, Shashi McIntyre, Dr. Leonard Jeffries. I mean, hell, I could go on.
Right. Pay attention. He's given great pieces of information right now that could lead you to a long, long way into your future, but you got to know where you came from also, like he's told you.
So if you talk about a book today that I would recommend everybody in this room to read, Dr. Suzar, Blackout Through Whitewash.
Mm-hmm.
But to pick up that book and start reading, it'll probably be very difficult simply because if you haven't put a foundation in place, it may be very, very, very difficult.
Okay.
You kind of figure, even with my book, there's 700 images in this book.
Mm-hmm.
You probably figure I'd have to at least read it's a small number, a dozen books just to come up with this 260-page
Right.
book of my own.
Right.
So you're going to have to do some research. And then I don't have a damn library card. So it's a lot more difficult. You're talking about purchasing books. You're talking about downloading books. You're talking about, swapping books with your man or whoever.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Just to get the information. You talk about tapping into the elders. You're talking about turning all this electronic stuff off and tapping into the dark matter and pulling it down. So just because you read a book, that's not going to give it to you.
Right.
You got to understand the book and then you got to apply it.
Right. It's a lot of elements that come with the wisdom.
Exactly.
Tell us something about your book.
Well, in keeping in line with that particular question, there's a book that I often talk about when I talk about the psychological covert war on hip hop, and that's the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations by John Coleman, mm-hmm. and the Committee of 300. 2 books, probably about 300 pages apiece. You're talking about sitting down and focusing in on what it is that you want to kind of pull out of those particular books. Not lightweight material.
Right.
Right. this is not gonna tickle your funny bone. This is some
Right.
serious information, and at the end, you probably gonna hold your head and have to call somebody to say, did you notice? Do you understand that this stuff is kind of going on?
Right.
And a lot of times, when you read books like that, you kind of look up and look around and see whether or not. And then when you go meet with your partners, your relatives, friends, or whoever, you want to know. Look, did you read this? Do you know that this stuff is going on? That happened to me.
Me
And
too.
as young people were responding to the YouTube clips, I had to go back and revamp the book.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it in 2008, and as y'all probably know, my house burned down under some very mysterious circumstances. So my books that I had written were in my computer. So I had to pull this book from memory and talking to people that lives that I affected. Let's just say if I met this brother 2006 and we talked about the Illuminati and we talked about hip hop, I'd have to call him back to dig up that conversation and have a conversation with him just to put the book back together.
Right.
I did interviews like this before my house burned down. I had to contact those people to get the footage back from them to see what I even said. Are you following me?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a labor of love, man, and it's very difficult pulling it back together. The books that I had read to put this together was burned in the fire.
Right.
So that means I had to go back and find those books.
Right. Find that information.
Which was critical, man. Even Bob Woodward's work, this book, Land of Hypocrisy by Anderson, dealing with the covert wars, dealing with the CIA, with John Stockwell. And this is books and information that the average person have never heard of. In my generation. So you can imagine, y'all, hell, I'm 51. You know,
30.
my daughter's 28,
Right.
your age.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So I know if this information that I've always had and studied and passing it down to the next generation, if your generation has never heard of them, can you just imagine that generation after you? You understand what I'm
Right.
saying? So just imagine. But the information is out there. We just need to know where to go look. That's all.
Right.
And that's one of the purposes for this interview.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to do.
To give them a reference point, right?
Sticking with that. Now, you know, like you said, your age compared to, you got the teenagers out here running around now. You say, for instance, like a person like me, when I first started, I guess, say in my studies, I would want to run and tell everybody, you know, just like, hey, y'all, chill out with this, blah, 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 blah. You got to do it like this, or it's a better way of living, blah, whatever. But then you get 90% of the people don't want to hear nothing. Not, you know, so how...
You think it's that high?
It's a lot, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe 90. It's up there. You get people who really are content with doing what they're doing. They're content with, you know, stress. They're content with their boss, their home life. They're content with all of this stuff that distractions that are intentionally piled against you. You know. So how would you, let's say 18-year-old, how would you break the ice to
an 18-year-old? My son is 21.
Okay.
I don't browbeat him. I don't beat him upside the head with it. He knows his father's Professor Griff. He know I have books out. He know what I speak about. I kind of throw it at him like I would throw it to the average person in this room. Every blade of grass don't grow at the same rate of speed.
Okay.
He may leave this interview and be like, oh, some deep shit. But I ain't got time to hear that shit. I got to go do what I got to do.
Right.
He may go hit the internet tonight and pull up this information and come up with his own material.
Right.
Every blade of grass doesn't grow at the same rate of speed.
Okay.
And we have to understand that and don't beat people upside the head. But let me tell you something. When I first started talking 5 to 7 years ago, really 8 years ago now, about the whole Illuminati's takeover of hip hop, first reaction is, I don't believe that shit. Yo, you believe that shit for real? That stuff is going down, son, like that?
Right.
Second thing is, after the whole idea and concept of belief, because it falls into people's idea of what they worship, their religious box that they in, and their little circumference of knowledge that they have, as Ray Hagan says. So if what I'm talking about don't fit in your little circumference here, then it's out of the box, I don't believe it, to hell with you, you're crazy. That's the first reaction. Second reaction is like, wow, okay, this shit could be happening because I seen what happened on the YouTube clip, or I seen a movie, or I ran into an older guy and so and so happened to my man when he went to sign a deal. Now they're balancing it out. Then the
Coming
second,
to life.
then they gotta go back to the first reaction after some shit happens to them.
Right.
Now it's like, oh, okay, some personal stuff is happening. Now let me find somebody to blame.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden it's that Illuminati shit.
Right. Everything
So
is the
everything's Illuminati. I said, stop that, dude. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then I think the final phase is they don't want to accept it because it's fighting, it's the internal struggle within inside itself. I think the last stage, I'm just actually going to deny it to the point where I'm going to wait till somebody else, something else happens to someone else to confirm what I know deep down inside
Right.
is really true.
Right. But they're looking for confirmation.
Thank you. And
Right.
validation.
Right.
So when they call me, I think a lot of young cats, not young, the middle age, their parents
Mm-hmm.
get really angry at me because they say, well, belief? And I tell them to fuck off my phone with belief. I don't do the belief thing. This is not belief.
It's fact.
This is actual fact. Because this is not coming just off the top of my head. I don't do the belief thing. Second thing they come with, faith. Keep that shit too.
Mm-hmm.
Look up the word belief and look up the word faith. This ain't based on faith. This ain't based on some shit that I think might come a little bit later on. This is actual fact. And I'm not saying because my name is on it.